What's going on, FPL managers? Welcome to another video from Fantasy Football Scout. I'm joined by Pras to talk about Gameweek 27 free hit. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing very well. Obviously, as many saw, I was on holiday last week, and obviously, Scout has said you need to do two this week. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Ted.
Oh, lucky boy being on holiday. Yeah, I'm jealous of the sun because we've had lots of wind and rain in the UK, so that hasn't been particularly good. Yeah, I worry about the football being called off, but I mean, did you catch the Man United Leeds match? A
I
waterlogged
did. I
pitch?
did.
Good.
I mean, ridiculous. I mean, I was going to tweet that these championship level grounds are, so bad. And then I was like, I'll get the wrath from Leeds fans like anything. So I decided not to.
Yeah, it was a crazy game. And yeah, I mean, got Operation Target Leeds, right? I mean, who's playing Leeds this week? I think it's Spurs, isn't it? So
It
yeah.
is indeed. Before that, though, Salah does.
Oh, good point. You know what? We both wildcarded this week, fresh off the back of those were 28 and 29 double game week announcements. And what a stressful Friday it was, Praz. Coming up with a 4 or 5 game week strategy and implementing it in 24 hours was it was a lot of brain power.
Crazy, yeah. I mean, we'll talk about it, but basically, I went from a very different strategy 2 weeks ago to a different strategy a week ago to a completely different one on Friday.
Absolutely. It was a crazy week of changing ideas. But we will have a look at how we've got on in Game Week 26 so far. Obviously only halfway through, but before that, just want to do the SoRare Academy, which is partnered with Fantasy Football Scout, which is a sort of mini game apart from the SoRare game itself, which is about collecting cards which are unique to you, and you can go into fantasy games and compete against other people. SoRare Academy is completely free to play, and you pick 5 players from all over Europe. So you can pick Neymar, you can pick Messi, you can pick Lewandowski, whoever you want. And in the domestic leagues, whether they do well in a normal fantasy week, you can compete against other managers, completely free to play. And if you do well, you can win some of these SoRare cards. And that will be a gateway into you playing SoRare, which is apparently quite good for collecting like player cards. Which apparently it's like Pokemon. Have you encountered this before, Praz?
No, it's a bit new for me. I'll need to read up on it.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. So yeah, make sure you check it out, and completely free to play. So why not dabble in it? But yeah, back to the free hit 27 stuff, and we will, before we get into that, we will look at our teams for game week 26, and we'll start with yours, Praz. 60 points on the wild card. Got to be happy with that, especially as triple captain Salah came off to a fantastic start and didn't hurt you too badly.
Yeah, honestly, when I was looking at the decision, the fact that I would not be able to triple captain Salah was one of the considerations, but it wasn't the biggest one because, sometimes we forget that we have a team of 11 and then the 12th player is the captain. And in this case, maybe the 12th and the 13th player was going to be Salah. And I just looked at the other 10 apart from Salah and I changed pretty much all of them. So I have Ramsdale left from that draft and Salah is obviously still there and Trent. And so I was in the mindset that I'm going to change the whole team, and this team is going to carry me in the next 5 weeks for lots of doubles. I think we had these stats on 9 doublers in 28, 7 doublers in 29. You save the free hit in 30. For me, as soon as the announcement came out, we have this chat, Sonaldo and a couple of other people, and my first reaction was, this is a wild card, because it just made sense to me. And to be honest, even a couple of hours before this, I was just thinking we're taking -8, -12s, -16s, obviously team dependent. People like Sonaldo, actually, who didn't wildcard, had Son, Saka, Salah already. So, it made sense for him to stay. But for me, I think it was a no-brainer, and I'm very happy with how it went. Obviously hurt by the Arsenal clean sheet wipeout, but these guys were, I think, over 100% EO defense. So it's not that bad. It's not like your differential defense, double defense didn't play out. I didn't expect Wolves to keep a clean sheet against Leicester. So I'm happy with going double. I didn't play Sa this week. Obviously was not happy seeing Robertson on the bench. I missed the early leaks or the late leaks before the deadline. But now I'm sitting pretty, right? Because I'd rather have Robertson against Leeds than Van Dijk. So generally very happy. I think Salah pain will come another 10 to 15 points, whatever it is. You take it on the chin. And I'm comparing that 20-pointer, 25-pointer with whatever we will get, us people who haven't triple captained him. I mean, if he double blanks, it's not paid off. If he does a return or two, then it's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're well set up for the future game weeks, which was what the plan was originally. And bench boost in 28 is looking really good, especially, and I'm going to keep all my fingers crossed for Arsenal versus Chelsea to be put into 28. I think we all are for bench boost. That will be.
Would you bench boost? I know we're talking about 28 now, but would you do it without the double as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think Watford is a good enough fixture for Arsenal, and obviously Liverpool with their single against West Ham is fine as well. So, I mean...
Yeah, you wouldn't have benched Salah and Trent anyway, right? So I don't even count them as the bench.
Exactly. As soon as Arsenal get a double game week in 28, you bench all your Liverpool players and bench boost Salah, Trent and Robertson, and that's that's a fantastic bench boost. But yes, you know, that we're thinking a little bit far ahead, and you know, I think just a single game week for Arsenal against Watford isn't bad to bench boost. So yeah, excited about the prospects, but we have to get past the Leeds fixture for triple captain Salah, which is going to be pretty frightening after that display against Man United. I thought that they were absolutely atrocious, especially Llorente, who was subbed in the first half on 45 minutes, wasn't it? So I really don't know. Yeah, 20 points was the expectation for Salah in this game week, but I think he can, and this is without captaincy. I think he could probably quite easily surpass that, and it's going to be touch and go whether we end up on a green arrow.
Yeah, I mean, I will take it on the chin because you know what? We got lucky as well with Bowen and Foden and Cancelo. I mean, especially Cancelo and Bowen, because those guys are actually, if you think about it, 266%. So we had 200% of that. So it's almost Salah is the one player we don't own, just single, 66% owned. Bowen was 90+%. Had he got a 15-pointer, that would have hurt much more. Cancelo could have easily, 10, 15-pointer. That hurts way more than a Salah triple cap because number one, it's a 66% owned player, not a 90. And we also still have a triple captainship left later.
Exactly. And yeah, you're absolutely spot on. We did get lucky about these really highly owned players. It was torturous watching them. I think we got away with it. Bowen was excellent as usual. Cancelo was even more excellent. I mean, the amount of shots he had in that match, unbelievable. Yeah. So yeah, we've got to be fortunate and be happy the way it's panned out. But yeah, so let's move on to my wildcard team. It's actually not too much different to yours, unsurprisingly. Largely the same amount of players. Rafinha 0 to hero for both of us. Benched, came on, scored, then got booked. A roller coaster ride benching for having Rafinha in your team. But Liverpool to go. Don't know whether I expect anything in that game, but if you were going to sort of expect 7 points in the double game week for Rafinha, yeah, that's probably about what you would take. And of course, a decent double game week in 28. So all in all, fairly decent. I went with Lacazette instead of the double Arsenal defence. So the Arsenal clean sheet wipeout actually helped me, weirdly. I didn't know whether it would, but yeah. I don't know. Lacazette and Jimenez, they seem like more of the assister forwards rather than the scorer forwards. So that was pretty evident this weekend. But yeah, all in all, pretty happy with this team.
The Arsenal Wolves game will be the big one for us, right? I mean, if that's a 0-0, then we're, everyone who's wildcarded loaded up on Arsenal and Wolves defenders, they're in play. So, or in your case, if Jimenez scores against Arsenal, then you're even, laughing even more. So yeah, and I'm actually going to Emirates for that game. So it'll be a nice one to watch 5 of my players, semi-differential players on the wild.
Have you got a spare ticket? I'll come with you.
Actually, a friend of mine has the spare ticket, so he's a season ticket holder. I'll be sitting with the Arsenal fans, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's difficult to know who to cheer for when you're in Fantasy Premier League, when you're at an actual game, because no one really.
And hoping for a 0-0 as well.
yeah, exactly. I won't be hoping for a 0-0 though. I think, but it's strange. Like always, the first fixture in the double game week is always the more upsidey, because then all of the players that you've loaded up with play each other in the subsequent.
Correct.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a bit of a difficult one. I'm just looking forward to Robertson playing. That's all I want, and to support. So yeah, pretty happy we ended up with him. I changed. Alison Maximan was in my team originally, and there was note from a Newcastle journalist that he was out for like 2 to 3 weeks before the deadline. So I had to quickly change that, and yeah, it was annoying because I had Sarr in my as the bench goalkeeper, and the likes of Tierney. No, it was Gabriel, and I didn't have Lacazette, so I had to quickly sort of switch that up on on the deadline stream. So I'm not actually that happy about owning Cody, but it is what it is. Dubravka.
I think sometimes we overplay the attacking potential of these. I went size because Leicester were looking weak from headers in the from corners. These things are, you're taking one in 20, 30 odds. So I think Cody's just as good.
Yeah, okay. He's certainly certain to start for minutes. So yeah. Not too unhappy. Right, let's get into the meat of the video and start looking at free hit stuff. So first of the charts I've got is defensive matchup. So this is the team and their XG conceded towards the right-hand side. So further to the right they are, the worst defensively, potentially. So we've got Leeds up there, top right, Norwich completely far right. And then their opponents in Game Week 27, their XG, so their opponents' attacking prowess. So teams in the top right have a weak defence and their opponents have an excellent attack. So assuming that they're probably going to concede a lot of goals. And conversely, in the bottom left, teams have a really good defensive prowess and their opponents are really weak attacking wise, so you can probably expect them to concede very few goals or increase their clean sheet chances. I think the thing that stands out for me, Pras, what do you reckon? Leeds against Spurs.
Leeds against Spurs is the fixture to target, to be honest, and it's a week where a lot of people debate should we free hit or not, and obviously we're focused here on those who are, but also people who are not. They will look at a Salah position, for example, and think, if I'm dead ending to 28, should I sell Salah for? And your options could be Son, could be KDB, could be Bruno. But I think this really helps to say that, look, if you want to target someone for a big mega haul, then I think you go with a Son as an example, or a Kane if you're looking to ship out Ronaldo, for example.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting managing the amount of premiums we can have in our side, because it seems like on a free hit, you can probably get around 4. So I think the big questions are probably the City lot, but we'll come to that later on. I think one of the questions here with this defensive matchup is, do we go triple Spurs? And the Kulishevsky, he might start every game in a row now. We don't know. He got a couple of returns at the weekend, and that's why he's now on the radar for everyone. So it'll be interesting to see whether people do go triple Spurs, because it doesn't matter about form. As long as someone's on the pitch against Leeds, they stand a chance against scoring and assisting.
Yeah, so. I mean, you say that though, but Ronaldo blanked this week. So I hear you. I just think you got to go for, on a free hit, there is a temptation to maximize, and rightly so, maximize the money on the pitch. And so if you are maximizing the money on the pitch, then you have to limit the amount of rotation risk players that you have alongside that. And if we're going to come to this, if you're going to have 3 Manchester City players, then you're already on thin ice in terms of who else can you go for in terms of rotation risk. So that's where I'm at with Kulishevsky, if that's how you pronounce it.
I think you know it.
Yeah. And that's my only issue. But otherwise, I think he's a really great shout. The more you can load up against Leeds, the better. So, yeah, Spurs are a good shout.
Yeah, absolutely. And Norwich there. So Southampton played Norwich, and Norwich have been, their XG conceded is pretty high. It's more than I thought, because I thought they were getting a little bit better defensively. So the likes of Breuer is going to be a popular pick, maybe Ward-Prowse to target that Norwich defence. Burnley, I think largely Burnley are going to be quite popular because they have the double game where you can see the 2 fixtures in the middle of the screen there against Leicester and Crystal Palace. Now, it's interesting. Do we double up? Do we have Pope? Do we have double defence? Do we have double attack? So Burnley's XG conceded is middle of the pack. So their stats are middling, and their opponents' attacking stats are middling. So it almost seems, if you ignore the actual number of clean sheets and number of goals that they've conceded, which is actually way above their stats, that they've got 2 mediocre chances of keeping a clean sheet. Does that deter you at all from doubling up defensively, Praz?
I think it deters me from thinking about captaincy but I just don't see when I think about Burnley, I will never. Yeah, I only have 7 slots for attackers. There's no way I'm wasting 2 on Burnley attackers, this double game week or not, because simply they are not going to score more than. And I know we're talking about defensive here, but they're not going to score more than 3 goals over 2, maybe 4. So if you have double attack, then you're not really maximizing the output. You'd rather hit a team. And Burnley are good for a clean sheet. I mean, they're decent, like you said. So if you can get 1 out of the 2, I'm happy with that. You got to go for it.
Absolutely. I mean, the appearance points are sometimes just under the radar, and in double game weeks, 2 points from 2 fixtures isn't a bad result, and anything on top of that can be decent. Especially if you pick Pope, who's the goalkeeper. Save points, bonus points are often given to those sorts of keepers that don't keep a clean sheet but get a lot of saves. So
right.
It's not the end of the world. But yeah, in terms of clean sheet prospects itself, Man City definitely there. West Ham against Wolves. Wolves aren't particularly attacking, although they scored a couple of goals at the weekend, but most of them, from a stats perspective, were outside the box, so unpredictable. So West Ham have a decent chance of keeping a clean sheet. Man United against Watford. Watford's attack isn't particularly good, although I have to say, last 6 matches don't include Sarr coming back in the side for most of them. Maybe that increases Watford's potential of scoring. But I think...
I think... Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, it's fine.
I was going to agree with you that Sarr really changed them. And against Villa, I was debating starting Coutinho or Dean, and I was actually quite set on starting Dean because I thought, Watford is blunt. They haven't scored in the last 5 games or whatever. But Sarr really made them tick, and those who either kept King and Dennis, actually, they, just 1 goal wasn't enough. King got a great chance. Dennis had another shot that was close. So my view on Watford has changed a lot, because my free hit draft a week ago would have had maybe double Man United defense, which I don't think is the play now.
Watford are really interesting because you look at there on the chart, they're like top 5 for XG conceded. Like Roy Hodgson, I don't know whether it's Roy or whether it's just the fact that they are just perceived worse than they actually are defensively. But they play Man United, who are, of course, very, very attacking, and that XG is definitely going to be enhanced by playing Leeds recently. But It's going to be an interesting matchup whether actually Man United managed to score a lot against Watford compared to Spurs against Leeds. So I don't think people should be going too mad on doubling and tripling up on Man United attacking assets. Would you agree with that, Praz?
I agree with that. I mean, I think that the general criticism for non-free hitter, general criticism by non-free hitters or people who are generally avoiding the free hit is we have teams apart from City that are very unpredictable. Usually we're used to a comfort blanket of 2 or 3 Liverpool players, a few City, maybe Chelsea defense, obviously not more recently, where these guys are predictable because there's underlying data to support the Chelsea defenders, the Man City attackers and defenders, and Liverpool's attack and Trent. But now you're kind of putting your money into a Man United team which can win 3-0, and I believe they can. But they could also equally lose, and they did lose to Watford earlier in the season. So you just never know. So I would say, when we talk about specific players, we'll get to that. But I think going anywhere more than 1 or 2 Man United would just be, you're taking a higher risk. Obviously, you can benefit if there's bigger returns.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like Man City might be the priority, and Spurs as well. So I think definitely having 1 or 2 Man United assets is a decent shout, but not to go too hard. But let's move on to the goalkeepers, because we can sort of dovetail this defensive chat with who the best goalkeepers to have in this double game week are. And this also applies to non-free hitters as well. You could be happy about owning the likes of De Gea and playing him against Watford. But certainly this chart, which is saves across the bottom per appearance in the last 6 game weeks, and then towards the top it's the XG prevented, how much that they are actually working to prevent the shots, to prevent the prevent the XG from actually being converted into a goal. And you can see Pope, top right there, is absolutely in insane form at the right time for us. So it's an absolute no-brainer for me to have him in this double game week. Burnley's goals conceded is the lowest here amongst all teams. It's equal to Liverpool. So 0.4 goals conceded, which is the number below the team name, is the same as Alisson's, and that is the lowest here. So they're conceding very, very few goals. You can see the number above it, the 1.1 XG on target conceded, is a little bit more than Alisson's, for example, and quite a lot of other teams. But it means that Pope is doing an excellent job of keeping all of these shots out. And what it does mean is he's got very good save potential and bonus potential. So what do you make of this chart, Pras? Anything of note?
I mean, the analytic FC will come back and say it could also be that he's been a little luckier than he should, than the stats suggest.
Yeah.
But I think, for us right now, the focus is, are we going for De Gea or Pope? And basically, those are the two standout keepers. You're probably not going to go for a Lloris or an Edison because you may want other slots for Man City. You're not going to back a Leeds attack, so against a Leeds attack. So I think between Pope and De Gea, I like Pope for all the reasons you said. I think they are coming into their own. I also feel that Sean Dyche has this mentality of, if we're in the relegation battle, and he's done this in the past as well, he just basically puts all his hunkers down and he says, I am now, we're here to defend. We're going to be solid. We'll get our discipline back. And I think we see that. I mean, they have started to get the clean sheets back. You see more discipline, and even without Tarkowski, I think they looked okay. So it's more a system thing with Sean Dyche, and I think they should be okay. And it's not like Man United are defending very well, right? So your comparison isn't an Alisson here or isn't a Ramsdale here. They don't play. So it comes back to, for me, I think Pope, especially with the double game week, is quite a good shout.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dyche in his post-match press conference or post-match interview was saying that he really thinks that the system is humming at the moment. The defensive system is really solid, and he's always said that he's had faith in it for the entire season. Like, whether they start conceding more goals than they actually should is just variance to a certain extent. But don't underestimate the amount of confidence that the side gets when they start getting results, and they start getting results now. They started keeping more and more clean sheets. There's going to be more cohesiveness. It's just a no-brainer to go double defensive Burnley, I think.
I mean, the question that people will have is, should we go, if we had the money, De Gea and the two centre-backs, or do you go Pope and a Maguire or a Dalot? And that's, I think, a more nuanced question in the sense of, and even Roberts is in the conversation now, who's looked fairly attacking. That's the more nuanced question on who do you want to go for? Do you target the centre-back who can go up for the headers in the corners, or do you get the Pope for the save points?
Yeah, exactly. I think De Gea has equal save opportunity to Pope. Like, even if it's Watford and they don't have that attacking prowess, they're probably going to get a few shots on goal. So I think De Gea is absolutely fine. I think, arguably Pope and Dalot is the same price as De Gea and me. So you could sort of 6 of one, half a dozen the other. But you could save money on Burnley defenders like Peters, who's 4.2. And if you're short for cash on your free hit, then that might be a decent downgrade from Ben Mee. You could save 0.6. So it really depends on your team structure, on your team value. But I think first choice for me would be Pope and Ben Mee, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that stands out from this chart to me is, Sarr. I mean, Sarr is a good option for people that have him. West Ham, and again, we're talking to non-free hitters. I think you can actually be reasonably bullish that Wolves is solid. West Ham have been looking a little bit leggy. I mean, especially the second half. I know you mentioned Bowen looked good in the first, but the second half, West Ham, I felt looked very tired against Newcastle. So I think if you have a Sarr in goal, you shouldn't be worried about and losing any upside to De Gea or Pope potentially, because Wolves' defense is good.
Yeah, and I think West Ham have turned into a side that's very, very dependent on Jarrod Bowen, and almost like a Wolves side that's dependent on Jimenez to a certain extent, even though he didn't score at the weekend. So it really depends on Bowen's performance. Obviously, he's in red hot form, so that doesn't really apply. But yeah, Sarr looks like a terrific option. The only other thing I'd add to this would be Ramsdale's strange position, because we've always seen him in that Pope position in the remainder of the season, and I can only sort of suggest that it's due to the nature of the opposition that he's had in the last 4 matches, which is the only matches he's played in the last 6 game weeks. I think it's like Brentford, Wolves, and Burnley, who don't tend to shoot that often. He has also played Man City, but he didn't get a single save in that game. So not 100% sure. But yeah, I think Arsenal's defence is actually sometimes to blame for Ramsdale's decline, because they've got really, really solid. And when a defence gets very solid, it actually removes the goalkeeper's potential, like Man City and Ederson.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So, but I think, on his day, Ramsdale's an absolutely fantastic keeper. So I wouldn't let that put you off.
Right.
Let's move on and talk about the attacking stuff for the free hit. So we'll go through the same process again. This is the attacking matchups. So we've got this, the teams attacking prowess in their XG towards the right-hand side. Man City and Man United setting the pace there. And their opponents' XG conceded towards the top. So we've got Tottenham there against Leeds and Southampton against Norwich. So Breuer again, Ward-Prowse, Son, Kane, all of the City boys, all the Man United guys seem to be the pick of the bunch. I think it'll be interesting to talk about captaincy here, Pras, because we've got Burnley there against Leicester, who have a terrible XG conceded, and then their second fixture against Palace. Weghorst and Burnley's lesser attacking appeal and their 2 fixtures versus the likes of 1 fixture for Son or Kane.
Yeah.
What are you currently sitting on?
I'm on double game week fever, obviously, Weghorst. But look, I think the head says Kane or Son, and maybe Son better for Leeds, given that they'll have spaces behind the back line for Son to run into. But the thing is, a lot of times people think you just get double game week fever and you just you go for rubbish players. This is partly true. This happened with King and Dennis. But on the flip side, you also have games where, with Bowen, for example, the first game didn't pan out. You're just basically taking 2 chances. You're rolling the dice twice and you may hit a 6. So, that's the idea. And I think not taking the Burnley double against another, I would find it hard if I didn't go Weghorst, to be honest.
Especially
My heart does. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. Especially as he's just, lit up with a goal and assist to add to his already assist and increasing stats. And Leicester is like a particularly decent matchup for him because of that set piece weakness. So I kind of agree with you, but I'm currently on Son because my head says Leeds is such a bad fixture. It's going to be a really difficult one, and I feel like I'm going to swap between captaincies until the deadline.
It's going to be the one that we decide last, because I think given the way the free hit template is going, we'll be all set on a team way before the deadline, and then all we'll be fretting about is, do we go with the head or the heart? And I just know myself. My way of resolving this is, which one will I regret more? And I think I'll regret more if the double game weeker does well and I didn't go for him, versus if Son does well, I'll be like, look, I have him as a differential. Probably Kane will do well as well. So I'm in a position where I own both anyway. But if Weghorst, scores a brace in one and scores a goal in the other, not that I'm saying Burnley score a lot, but look, you're taking a chance. You're taking a punt, especially at a time where we're on free hit. We're not going to get Burnley players again, perhaps for the rest of the season. So I probably will go for Weghorst.
It's an interesting one, actually. Like, obviously, the way we should think about it is we pick the player who's going to score the most points. And I think Weghorst has that higher floor because he's got the 2 games. But I think maybe the Spurs guys have the highest ceiling. It's just hitting that ceiling is probably, you need that variance to go your way. You need Son to be clinical as he normally is. And you need to have those immense amount of opportunities. But Weghorst in 180 minutes is probably the sensible pick. And any sort of statistical model will probably suggest that Weghorst scores more than any other single game week player. I wonder what the effective ownership will be, because from what I've seen on social media, that everyone who isn't free hitting, the differentials that the free hits players will have is Son and Kane more often than not. So Son and Kane may already be differentials to
Right.
those that free hit, whereas Weghorst might be more highly owned because he's cheaper, and people have already loaded up on him for the 26 double. So
Yep.
I can see Weghorst being the key guy, and if you don't want to go against him, then maybe he's the sensible option.
Yeah, look, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think Weghorst's EV will be more than 100. So you're basically saying, can I back my gut and have triple, double Son and Kane, triple attack from Spurs versus 110% Weghorst? And I see your logic. I think there is a lot of upside, but again, it's Spurs, right? I mean, if we were talking about even Salah with a single game week, I would have said, okay, because I trust the Liverpool attack. With Spurs, yes, they looked great against City, but yes, the team was up for it. They were playing the champions. They always do well against City. Do they show up against Leeds? How the game goes? That one game is what I have an issue with. That you just have a bad game and that's it. Your captain's gone, as opposed to two bites at the cherry.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just had a super chat, and I don't normally do super chats, but it's, should I free hit now to avoid price rises? If you're going to free hit now during this week, activate the free hit as quickly as possible, and then you can make the most of all of the price rises that go up, and maybe increase your team value by a few. Well, actually, I've had a number of questions on free hit about the intricacies about whether you get your squad, your selling price back after you finish the free hit and you go back to your original squad and all this sort of stuff. Basically, you get your team back like it was before the Game Week 26 deadline, as if you hadn't touched it for an entire week, including all of the price rises and falls that may have gone on in the subsequent weeks. So yeah. Hopefully that helps. We will go on to talk about the players themselves now, I think. So bearing in mind the actual fixtures that we've just seen, I've split it down to the Spurs guys, Man United, Southampton, Man City, and Burnley. And I think those are the key players that we're going to target this week. So this chart basically just splits out the XG of these players into big attempts, which are shots and chances created, and the small attempts, which are shots and chances created. The big ones are the easy ones, the small ones are more difficult. Kane, Fernandes, and Son absolutely setting the pace in that top right-hand side, and staples on your FPL and your free hit team, Pras?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, Fernandes wasn't in my team earlier, but after the performance and after seeing how Leeds were, I think I love this chart, by the way. It gives you such a good picture, and possibly one of the few things. Usually I just look at XG or XGI, but this one I always kind of go back to because it splits out. It gives you that nuance. For example, the Silva, the De Bruynes, they're not getting those big chances. They might still have a good XG. So I really love this. And to answer your question, I think for sure, Son and Kane, the Man City guys that are propping up here, and Bruno.
So yeah, that's basically the idea of the chart. I'm glad you find it useful. It's really interesting because normally if you look at XG, and the purists among you will say there's no difference between having less higher quality chances and fewer quality chances, so which is De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva is the latter. But I think it does make a difference if you are targeting a single game week, for example, on a free hit. I think you're more likely to get returns if you target players that get the bigger chances, because they're more likely to convert them when they get them. And if they get one big chance in a single match, they're more likely to get a return than someone has, I don't know, 3 or 4 speculative efforts. So that's just my opinion. The purists among you will completely disagree, but
no, I think, look, we're also working in an environment where if you had data of 100 games and then you did this, then I would agree with that. But we're also working in an environment where things change, the positions change, the tactics are changing somewhat depending on opponents. So you want to see that, is Bernardo Silva the asset that he was when he was playing up front versus now that De Bruyne is back, and now the the chances, even though the XG might be similar, there are more smaller chances than the bigger ones that they were getting. I do get the big picture question comment that you said, that it probably doesn't make a difference if he's taking 10 shots from outside the box with a similar XG than the one. But yeah, I see exactly what you're saying. I would rather have the guy with the bigger attempts.
Yeah, I think so. So Sterling seems to be the standout option. But I think the decisions that we're all going to have to make on this free hit are which two City guys to get if you're going to get two midfielders. I think Mahrez, he was benched last week. They are not playing midweek, so they're going to have a week's rest. I think that's the case.
Yeah.
So Pep's more likely to play his best 11 against an Everton side that maybe us FPL managers consider to be weaker than the general perception amongst, FPL actual football managers. So Pep's likely to give that fixture a little bit more credit than maybe we would, and he's going to try and play his best 11. And if we can predict his best 11, then maybe we stand a chance at getting two key midfielders from Man City. So who are your current favourites? Because it seems like a big spread at the moment on this chart.
I mean, look, it matches where you are, which is basically Sterling and Mahrez. If you look at only big attempts, obviously Foden's putting up good numbers. And this is one nuance that I wanted to talk about, that a lot of people say, look, Foden was the go-to guy. You guys were all bigging up Foden for the last few weeks. And now suddenly everyone's saying, okay, we don't want Foden on free hit. Doesn't make sense. And I just want to explain the reason why Foden on a regular game week is the go-to guy is the price. Because if you go for a Sterling or a Mahrez, then you can't have a Son or a Kane alongside. So you're basically blocking yourself out. So on a regular basis, I would take the smaller upside, little bit smaller upside, for the fact that I can afford other players across my team. For a 1 week free hit, I'm basically looking at zooming in on only the guy who will get me the better volume of shots and ultimately the more FPL points. And there for me, the way Sterling's been playing, I mean, Sterling is a streaky player. He's been more central. He's been starting up front. And I don't know about you, but I think they'll revert back to the Foden, Sterling, Mahrez combination up front. They won't have the false nine that they had against Spurs. I think that was more of a, when it's a back five, more defensive team, and a top four team, he usually goes for that. So if you're back to that, we're in this environment where at City, as you said, there's a midweek break, but also after this, the Champions League midweek is a dead rubber, almost a dead rubber. I mean, they're 4 or 5-0 up, I forget. So it's a perfect chance in that game to bring Grealish or Jesus back for some minutes as they're getting back. It's a perfect game because City have lost the last one, so he's not going to take the chance and start a Grealish even though he's half fit. So this is the team where hopefully we can all be pepped at any time, but I think it's a very predictable lineup. I mean, I could say with reasonable certainty, other than Walker versus Stones at right back, you can probably say what this team is going to be, and we'll see what the predicted lineup says. They can obviously be spanners. But if that team is what it is, given the stats, I would go for Sterling and Mahrez. Mahrez for the pens, for the fact that he's the go-to guy, and Sterling for the fact that he's electric. He's showing great numbers. I think 3 double-digit hauls in the last 5 or 6. So those are the guys I want.
Yeah, just listening to you there just really sort of enforced my comfort about being able to predict the Man City lineup, which is obviously a terrible thing to say because we could easily get stung by Pep. We've been through this a million times. But it does seem like a logical move from Pep, especially when, they've lost points against Spurs. Liverpool have gained points. They need to win this game to just get back to winning ways, to just put your first 11 out. And I completely agree with you. Sterling, Foden and Mahrez, that front three is their first 11. Like Grealish, I don't know, is he injured? Is he out of favour? I'm not sure. I think Jesus is actually injured. He's certainly red flagged on the FPL.
Yeah, even Grealish is, but Grealish is apparently coming back.
Right.
So it's actually a perfect storm. Those guys aren't fit. So they don't have many options up front anyway, unless they went for a Gundogan false 9 or even a Bernardo Silva, which they experimented. I don't think there's anybody else. And somebody can argue, look, Grealish could be fit by Friday, but is he really going to throw him into this game? Or will it be the game where they're 5-0 up or 4-0 up and, he'll get some minutes? And by the way, this is another argument Luke was saying today on Twitter, that if he wants to give Grealish some minutes, then who does Grealish come on for on the 65th minute? It's Foden, because that's where Foden's been playing.
Yeah, agreed. And he's been a little bit out of form, Foden, compared to the rest. Sterling with, zero point 0.3 big returns, zero point 0.5 small returns, Mahrez zero point 0.8 big returns. Foden only zero point 0.2 of the more difficult efforts, and even De Bruyne has more. So even Bernardo Silva has more, and that says it all. But what do you think about Foden at the moment? Because every time I watch him, I think what an absolute class player he is. He just doesn't get enough FPL returns for us.
So I was watching the midweek game that they had where he did score, and he had a VAR ruled offside. He had so many assist chances. But by the way, this is true of all City players because that's the number of chances they create. So for me, he's almost a hygiene pick that you have to have him because he'll be involved, he'll be in the points. But now we're talking on a relative basis, then I do agree that he hasn't been, whether that's because in some of the games he's in charge of hugging the touchline. You remember the Sane role 2-3 years ago where Sane would just not leave the touchline. Now Foden doesn't do that. He does come inside a little bit, but I feel that there are some games where tactically Pep says, look, you are going to be the guy who'll create the width for us and give us that space. Mahrez never sticks to the dead touchline anyway. So the game almost kind of moves towards the left and Foden stays more outside the box and Mahrez is the one coming into the box. That's just my observation. But anyone who's short of funds and is thinking, can I downgrade a Sterling? If I was to rank, I would say Mahrez for me, number one, Sterling, and then Foden. Could I downgrade a Sterling to a Foden to afford a Bruno, Son, and Kane in my team? I think that's absolutely fine. I mean, I don't think there's any issue in going for Foden. We're nitpicking here in terms of who's slightly better, but I think both are very good. And for those not on free hit who already have Foden, absolutely fine as well.
I mean, this is the beauty of picking two midfield City assets. It's because they all belong to different price brackets, and depending on your team value, you can accommodate any of these players in different ways, and they're probably all fairly decent. So, I mean, we haven't talked too much about De Bruyne, and obviously we know what a good player he is, but it seems like Sterling is the guy, and obviously Mahrez on penalties as well. So it's difficult paying 12 million for De Bruyne because it does deteriorate the rest of your team a little bit, prevents you from going the likes of Ben Mee. You might have to go for a cheaper Burnley player. You might have to downgrade those bench options a little bit further, and then any rotation becomes an even more pressing problem for you. So yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think Sterling and Mahrez, it's interesting. We put the same free hit team together initially, so we're pretty aligned on this.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say a couple of things on Sancho. So he's showing up here as well. And this is last 6 game weeks, even though Sancho has really shown up in the last 2 or 3, I would say. So I would say take this with a pinch of salt, where the first 3 of the 6 weren't as good, but the last 3 are actually very good. And I think Sancho has nailed the spot. There's no way he's getting rotated. So he will start the Watford game. And I think the same logic applies between Fernandes and Sancho, that if you were short of funds and you really wanted to go Sterling and Mahrez, then you could see an argument of going Bruno to Sancho. Now, I know Bruno's just hauled, and it's very difficult to talk people out of players who have just hauled to go for somebody who hasn't. I mean, Sancho goes 2 assists, but I think he's a good shout as well. People, if they go for, I wouldn't suggest 2 attackers from Man United against Watford, but if they went for Sancho instead of Bruno, I don't think it's the worst shout in the world.
Yeah, agreed. I think I was looking at building in Sancho to go alongside Fernandes and get 2 City defenders instead of 2 City attackers. And I think it's a legitimate draft. So have a play around with it yourself and see if you like it. I think Sancho's a great option. But yeah, moving on from these City and United players, we've got this Kulusevski guy whose stats aren't actually that good because Kane has converted that header from it was one cross. It was one very decent cross, it has to be said. And of course, he had basically an open goal from the Son pass. But other than that, has he done that much? Not too much. But if you compare the amount of returns he has, 0.7 big returns per appearance, 0.3 small returns per appearance, compared to the people around him with similar stats, massively overperforming. Take that with a pinch of salt because obviously they're playing Leeds, and if he's on the pitch, he can do, he could get a couple of goals in that for all we know. So yeah, maybe not reading too much into this. I'm not 100% sure, but from all of the other options that we've discussed, it seems like there's plenty to sort of hedge your bets with. And I'm talking myself out of the Kulichevsky draft, I'd say.
Right.
So yeah, the other. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, there's a question I was reading from the chat on the video. I don't know if you wanted to touch on that. I think it's an old video. I don't even think it's a recent one. So I've put zero value on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't put any value in it. I don't know much about this, to be quite frank. But unless it becomes a big issue, and obviously we're going to get press conferences, we're going to get all of these sorts of reports from journalists and stuff. We've got a whole week to decide this. Free hit is flexible; you can transfer in and out players as much as you want. So just keep a track of it. I don't think it will be a big issue, but yeah. But yeah, moving on from these guys, Weghorst's stats, Pras, aren't actually that bad for a Burnley striker. You know, comparable to Foden's, and you know he's in form now, arguably. So maybe that captaincy can be put on him. I'm not sure.
The thing with looking at these stats after the score, I mean, obviously he had the chance and he put it away. And I know that'll probably show up in XG overperformance, but he was there and he did well to be there for the chance. But will Burnley create enough of those chances in over those two games versus a City or a Spurs? So I'm just trying to give the other side of it, where there is perfectly decent logic for people to say that, look, I'm going to ignore the fact that these are appearance points. Ultimately, a double game week is appearance points and minutes. But if you had a view that Spurs will create more chances in the game than Burnley will over two games, and I don't think that's a very far-fetched assumption, then absolutely, I think a Son or a Sterling or a Mahrez captaincy is absolutely fine as well.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of ways to do this, and yeah, the beauty of it, I think it comes down to your personal preference. So, yeah, let's not forget, guys, that, you know, if you go for, I tweeted this earlier, if you go for a differential on your free hit, it may just be overkill. The fact that you're playing your free hit is differential in and of itself. So,
Yeah,
just keep it simple. Go for the obvious players, and you know, hopefully they come through. They're more likely to come through, at least, because differentials are, you know, low ownership for a reason, and if they will propel you up the ranks if they do well, but they're probably on the whole less likely to do well. But yes, I mean, the other Burnley players compared to Weghorst are, you know, not that appealing, to be honest. I was tempted to go Cornet initially, but looking at his last few games, he hasn't seemed the same player, and Weghorst just seems like the most obvious option. So I think,
to be honest, before AFCON, when people are considering Cornet, we did with Sonaldo, we did a comparison. I mean, he was overperforming his stats ridiculously. So even before, it was a case of scoring 4 worldies in 5 games, and people kind of just, that's where he came into the radar. He's fine. He's an attacker. He's out of position. You could get lucky. But for me, if it was a decision between them, I would definitely go with Weghorst. And if it's a decision between a defender and Cornet, for me, it's the defender.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So the last two to really talk about on this is the Southampton guys. Breuer, I think, is going to be a staple in our sides because he's so cheap, and his stats have been really good recently. Hasn't been so good on the returns, but against Norwich, who, as we've just seen, their XG conceded is pretty high, he has a really decent chance of scoring in that game, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was speaking to somebody today that if I had an extra million, then I would have probably gone the 5th midfielder of Ward-Prowse. So I think Breuer is also in the team, not because he's the best Southampton attacker, but because he enables the Son, Kane, Bruno, double City midfield. So he can enable that, and he's a great option. It's not like Ward-Prowse is going to outscore him by 10 points. But I think all things being equal, if you just gave me a million more, I would slightly prefer Ward-Prowse for the other stuff, you know, the free kicks and the assist potential as well.
It's interesting you say that if you had unlimited budget, you would choose Ward-Prowse over Breuer. Where I'm not sure I completely agree with that, because from the just because of the nature of the sorts of goals that Ward-Prowse scores, they're absolutely fantastic finishers, but they're sort of unpredictable to a certain extent. So if you've got like a decent fixture in Norwich that are going to allow plenty of big chances, it kind of screams Breuer to me as the more obvious pick. But it's just interesting how you have a different opinion on that.
I just, his underlines are also, I mean, Broya has looked good, but his underlines are okayish, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing well for his price, but again, we're talking unlimited budget. Who would you go for? And that's where I think you get another route to points, and what Pras gives that. I do also agree with you that if it was a double game week, then it adds to the fact that he could get that free kick, and so therefore maybe then you go for WordPress. So I do see your logic as well. But I think Broya just enables so much that you get him. Some people who could afford, someone else may even have a bench luxury of having Broya first bench, but I think he's a very startable player and a good pick.
Yeah, FPL training in the chat saying he's on pens too, of course, and 100% nailed. So definitely not worth ignoring that, because that's definitely a valid point. And I think if you've lost faith with Rafinha for some reason, maybe he continues to be benched in the next game against Liverpool, then he's a decent alternative to Rafinha at about the same price for the game week 28 double. So yeah, so someone to think about, Ward Prowse, and not someone that I'd been thinking about that much really. So good stuff. Right, everyone in the chat, please like the video, because we're about to show you our free hit draft that we randomly just made separately, and it was exactly the same. So I'm glad we're on the same page as Praz. But yeah, give the video a like, guys, and it will boost the views and all that sort of stuff with the algorithm. And yeah, let's take a look at our free hit team. It's Pope in goal, as we sort of said. He seems like the standout option. That Ben Mee, that double Burnley defensive double up in the defensive line. And then obviously Weghorst, that the third Burnley player in the forward line. And then we've got the Sterling and Mahrez midfield with Cancelo, Dalot and Fernandes, Dalot with the Watford fixture, Son and Kane, and Broya against Norwich. I think that's a pretty solid team, Praz.
That's everything a free hit should be. I mean, I can talk about my couple of concerns in this team. So the first concern is obviously Dalot. I think my view as a Man United fan is Dalot is first choice. Van Bissaka played this game, but the Leeds game, but it was purely because it was a high energy game. I expected there to be rotation. I also expected actually Ronaldo to miss out, but Cavani wasn't fit enough, and clearly he's not trusting Rashford at all. So I don't think Dalot's spot is an issue. It's the Man United defense. So are you trusting a Man United defense versus a Livramento or a Bednarek, for example? So that's my first dilemma. And those asking about Livramento, look, he was injured, and then obviously Wright Phillips came in and he did really well. Sorry, Kyle Walker-Peters came in and he did really well. And he's taken that spot, but now Livramento had a great game, and I think he'll keep his spot. So he's possibly a good option. And would you play him over Dalot? Maybe. If you wanted to be super safe, you just go Bednarek, and that's your guy. Just 4.4, I think he is. My second concern is the bench, right? I mean, the bench is pretty thin, and you have a Pep roulette of basically not playing Mahrez or Sterling or whatever. And then you're stuck with, you playing Amarty, or I don't know which your bench was, and me playing Livramento if he misses out, or Dalot if he misses out. And suddenly you're not even putting out 11 on a free hit. That's my one concern that I'm trying to kind of think through. Is it worth the effort? I'll probably have a look at the predicted lineups for City. We'll see how the Champions League game goes for Man United. Is Bruno doing all right? Was he looking tired or not? Things like that. So I think those are the things that are at the back of my mind. But Son, Kane, the double City mid, Bruno, Weghorst, double Burnley, everyone's going to have that. So it's more about what are you trying to do aside from that. And like you mentioned, I think those are very wise words. People don't need to kind of say everyone's free hit looks like this, so we need to be little different, because the majority are actually not on free hit.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think from what you said is absolutely completely logical. And if you need to free up cash, if you don't like the City midfield double up because you aren't certain of those minutes, there are plenty of ways you can tweak this. You could move Sterling down to Sancho and Dalot up to Laporte and have two City defenders instead. Or you can move Mahrez down to Kulusevski and Dalot up to Laporte. You can can do plenty of stuff with this side. I think it has a really strong foundation with those 4 premiums, Breuer with the 5.3, 5.4 player enabling all of those 3, and of course the Burnley double up, the triple Burnley double up. So I'm really happy, and I think we might end up having the same side, but I'm not worried. I'm not worried. As you say, it's enough of a differential to have on a free hit, and I think people are going to go without Son and Kane this week against Leeds, and that must be fairly terrifying. So, but I mean, equally so, if you're saving the free hit for later in the game weeks, for later in the season, you're going to get the benefit then, and as long as you play the chips fairly logically, you're going to get a huge benefit. So, I'm quite excited though, Praz. Are you?
If you're not excited on a free hit week, then there's something wrong. This is chip season, right? Chip season is so exciting. You can tinker. The only thing I'm trying to guard against is just fatigue of looking at the same team over the week and just getting that urge to tinker. I came up with a draft yesterday where I had De Bruyne, Sterling, Mahrez all in midfield, and then a double Man United defense. And I was like, look, you're just trying to over-engineer here. Is De Bruyne that much better than Fernandes, and you're losing Cancelo in return? So it's about basically talking sense to yourself. I see some comments in the chat as well. If everyone in the FPL community has the same team, where is the differential? This is the differential. I mean, not everyone is on free hit, and if this is the best team, why do you want to not have the best team just because you want to be different? That's the way I would think about it.
Yeah, just to back up Praz there, Gianni put out a poll earlier which had like 2,000 votes on it, asking whether you were free hitting or not, and 55% of people weren't free hitting. So if you're hitting this week, you're getting 55% of the benefit of free hitting. I'm sure there's going to be, that's a very, very, basic way of working it out, but you're going to get players, these 4 premium assets. If people are keeping Salah, for example, they're only going to have 1 premium compared to your 4 on free hit. And that's just, the people could wildcard in 28 and sell Salah for another premium, but it's still got 2 extra premium players and triple Burnley. So I think there's a huge upside in this, and don't get trapped by searching for differentials just for the sake of it. That would be our takeaway message, I think.
Indeed. I have one question for you, Ted. There's certain people who don't have our team value, right? I mean, they have not been as focused on price changes.
Yeah.
If I was to ask you in your team, if you had 1.5 million less as just where would you save that 1.5?
I mean, Foden is a cheaper option in that City midfielder. You could go Sterling and Foden. You could go Mahrez and Foden. It really depends. You can also downgrade Fernandes to Sancho if you want to save that cash. I think also if you're really desperate, Cancelo to Laporte, or I think Cancelo probably has a much bigger upside. Although Laporte has scored his fair share of goals in the recent week, so I think there are plenty of ways to do it.
Which one would you do?
I think the first thing I would do is me down to Peters for the 0.6 saving that you can get from that, because I don't think there's massive difference. Like Ben Mee, we sort of assume that he's got goal threat because he's scored goals in the past, but is it that much better than Peters' progression at left back? I don't know. I think it's pretty much the same.
I mean, my worry with fullbacks is, and people are talking about Roberts as well as the option, is when Burnley are not used to playing midweek games, right? I mean, they're a Premier League team, but not in Europe typically. So will there be fatigue? Will the fullbacks actually be rotated? And I know Loughton is still coming back and Charlie Taylor is still coming back. So you cannot eliminate that, Sean Dyche just feels that they need a rest. Mee is not going to get a rest. So let's continue with that. So you might downgrade Mee. Who would you downgrade between Sterling or Bruno? Would it be Foden or would it be Sancho?
Oh my goodness, this is really tough. I think the thing about the City guys is they have a week off. And, there's a lot of people saying, oh, Sterling needs a rest or Mahrez needs a rest or whatever. I don't think that's going to be the case. I weirdly think that the City guys are going to be more predictable this week. Obviously, Fernandes is going to play every single game, so he's more nailed on. And I think he's just he's really got back to his early season form. he's a must for me. So it would have to be Sterling down, I think. I think Mahrez is probably first choice in this team, and then Sterling down to, I don't know, you could go Foden, you could go Sancho, and then you could upgrade Dalot to Laporte, and you'd have 0.4, 0.5 extra from that move. I think that's probably what I would do, Praz. How would you save money? Is that
No,
something?
I'm very similar. So I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but I've just wanted to kind of think through that as well, because when I put the free hit team down, most of my comments were, "How are you affording this? We can't afford this." So this is why I just wanted to cover that as well for people who are on. So I would probably, if pushed, I would go Bruno to Sancho, because my reasoning is simple, that I want to have the maximum from the team that I think will score the most points, which is Spurs and City. And so I'm not going to compromise on that. From the team that can disappoint, which Man United can against Watford, I think you're basically losing a little bit of upside with Bruno if you go Sancho. But I think Sancho's looked so good that I wouldn't even be surprised if he got a couple of returns as well. So that would be my recommendation if somebody wanted to go with this draft that you're seeing here, but you didn't have the cash, that you could look at Fernandes to Sancho.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's an absolute minefield, though. You could tinker away and add 20 different screenshots to your camera roll, and
Sure.
get like equally as nice teams, and it'd be really difficult to choose. But yeah, if you are struggling for team value, there's plenty of ways to deal with it, as we've just gone through. So hopefully that helps you with your free hit for 27. Praz, you're back on Wednesday with Sonaldo to do the burning questions video for the first time in a while. You've taken a nice break off, but it's back to work. And I understand that you're going to be looking at non-free hit stuff. So everyone, the 55% of people who aren't free hitting are going to get more benefit from that video, maybe.
Yeah, it'll be a bit of both. We'll actually have Andy as well, who does Scoutcast. So he'll be on. We all are on free hit as well. And originally the idea was we discuss our drafts, and they all look very similar. So we'll spend a lot of time on what can people think about if they're not on free hit, and who are the people to target.
Fantastic. Look forward to that. I think we'll end the stream there. Thank you everyone for joining us. Give us that like button again. That would be super helpful. And thank you for joining me, Praz.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, feel super more comfortable about my free hit now after the massive confirmation bias of going through all of the stats and sort of backing up our free hit team tinkers. So yes, excited for free hit 27, but we've still got the rest of 26 to get through. And yeah, fingers crossed Salah goes easy on us.
Thanks,
okay,
man.
Nice one. I will see you guys later. Have an excellent week. All the best.
Bye.